Now, for more on Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi's visit to Tunisia, let's turn to Wang Jin. He's an associate professor at Northwest University of China. Good morning, Professor. Thanks for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
So this is the 34th year that the Chinese Foreign Minister has traveled to Africa for the first overseas trip. What message does this send, crucially, to the continent and also the outside world?
I think the message sent by the trip is very clear that China cherishes the relations with the African country, and also China hopes to develop the bilateral relations with different African countries and also with Africa with a whole in the future under the principle of the mutual respect and the mutual equality, and hope to develop the more achievable results during this kind of the process. So Wang Yi's trip to the Africa, the destination are very diversified, because two countries, as we can see, the Tunisia and Egypt, they are the North African countries, and also the rest of the two countries are the South African countries. I mean the countries south to the Sahara region. So actually, these are the four countries with different diversities and different aspects and different characteristics. So that is why this trip, on the one hand, will for sure facilitate and encourage the healthy, much more healthy bilateral relations between China and the different destinations of this trip, and on the other hand, will encourage the much more promising bilateral trust and the bilateral cooperation between China and the other African countries in the future. And also, I think Chinese people will hope to develop the much more positive and healthy ties with Africa in the future.
That's really interesting about the choice of destinations. Now, one of the biggest issues often discussed in China-Africa relations is debt. But there's so much more to that relationship, and you touched on that. What defines, for you, Professor, these ties, and what sectors are we seeing the greatest cooperation?
I think that actually there were a lot of the areas of cooperation that could be facilitated and further encouraged between China and the African countries. Of course, there were some kind of the criticism especially from the Western countries, as you mentioned, maybe the debt, and also maybe some kind of the mistrusting and misunderstanding between China and some Western countries towards China and African relations, and also there were some misunderstandings inside African countries towards China's motivation, towards China's policies in the future. But no matter how this kind of criticism, is a good thing, because everybody is now paying attention to these relations between China and African countries. But we have to know that China always cherishes the friendship with the African countries, and China always hopes to develop the very possible, sustainable, and healthy relations with different African countries under the principle of the mutual trust, the mutual respect, and the mutual equality, and also under the initiative of the Belt and the Road. So I think there will be some criticism, there will be some misunderstandings, but I think this misunderstanding, the criticism, will be melted down by the very practical, by the very achievable results that would be facilitated and encouraged between China and the different African countries in the future.
Encouraging results indeed. That is Wang Jin, Associate Professor at Northwest University of China. Thank you for your insight.